If you love jaw-dropping family drama, betrayal, and emotional revenge, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Dive into Robbie's painful story of betrayal and his fight to reclaim his life. Like, comment, and share to stay hooked on 558 Whispered Truths, where secrets explode into unforgettable stories. I'll never forget the taste of excitement in my mouth that day. After closing a major business deal earlier than expected, I rushed home with Georgia's favorite champagne tucked under my arm, imagining her face lighting up when I walked through the door. 12 years of marriage, and I still lived for her smile. The house was eerily quiet when I entered, but our bedroom light spilled into the hallway. As I approached, I heard it. Hushed laughter, whispers, the unmistakable sounds that freeze your blood when they're coming from your own bedroom. I pushed the door open slowly, and the champagne bottle slipped from my fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. There they were, Georgia, my wife, and Brad Jr., my own brother, tangled in our sheets, our marriage bed, the sheets we'd picked out together on our 10th anniversary. Time stopped. My brother's face registered shock, then something worse, a flicker of satisfaction beneath his panic. Georgia clutched the sheets to her chest, her wedding ring catching the light as she did. "Robbie, it's not," she started, but couldn't even finish the lie. My voice came from somewhere distant, hollow. "How long?" Their silence answered first. Then Brad found his voice. "It just happened, man." But Georgia's eyes betrayed them both. 3 years, she finally whispered. "We didn't mean for it to. 3 years. 3 years of family dinners where they'd passed dishes across the table, shared inside jokes I never quite understood. 3 years of Brad stopping by our house when I was working late. 3 years of lies stacked perfectly like playing cards, waiting for me to knock them down. "We were going to tell you," Brad said, reaching for his pants, "after we figured some things out with the company." The company. Our family business. The place I'd poured my soul into since I was 22. Suddenly, all those closed-door meetings between Brad and our father made sense. The reshuffling of accounts. The questions about my client relationships. This wasn't just my wife betraying me. This was a calculated dismantling of my entire life. I backed out of the room without another word, stumbling over the broken glass, champagne soaking into my shoes. In the kitchen, I gripped the counter to steady myself, my wedding photos staring down at me from the wall. Strangers' faces now. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "Heard the deal closed. Good job, son. Family dinner Sunday?" Family. I looked down at my trembling hands, watching as droplets fell onto them. I hadn't even realized I was crying. Everything I believed about my life, my marriage, my family, my future, crumbled around me like the walls of a sandcastle against the rising tide. I had no idea then just how deep this betrayal would cut, or how the avalanche it triggered would bury everything I thought I knew. You know what's funny about being reliable? People stop noticing you. They just expect you to keep going, like some machine that never breaks down. For 7 years, I was that machine at Total Build, our family construction business. Every morning, I'd arrive before dawn. Blueprints spread across my desk, coffee going cold as I solved problems before Dad or Brad Jr. even knew they existed. My brother's mistakes became my specialty, fixing budgets he'd blown, smoothing over relationships with clients he'd offended, redoing work that hadn't met standards. "Robbie will handle it," they'd say, and I always did. Georgia used to joke that I was married to the business first, her second. When we found out she was pregnant, she quit her teaching job. "I want to create the perfect home for our family," she said, kissing me goodbye each morning as I headed out before sunrise, often returning long after dinner had gone cold. That particular Tuesday, I'd driven 4 hours each way to salvage a site my brother had mismanaged. The client was furious, threatening to pull out entirely. "Your brother promised us top-grade materials," he fumed, pointing to clearly substandard beams. "Either fix it or we're done." I spent 3 days sourcing new materials at our expense, working alongside the crew to make up for lost time, sleeping in my truck to avoid hotel costs that would further eat into our already thin profit margin. When I called home, Georgia sounded distant. "Everything's fine here," she said flatly. "Your dad stopped by with Brad to discuss some company reorganization." Reorganization. That was the first I'd heard of it. When I finally got back to the office, exhausted and grimy from the job site, my father barely looked up. "Oh, good. You fixed the Henderson situation," he said, as if I'd merely picked up his dry cleaning. Brad wasn't even there. Had called in sick. Mom passed me in the hallway, squeezing my arm. You look tired, dear, she whispered, concern flickering across her face before she hurried after Dad. It was the only acknowledgement anyone gave to the bags under my eyes, the weight I'd lost, the way my shoulders slumped under invisible pressure. In meetings, I'd make suggestions about efficiency improvements or expansion opportunities, only to have Brad interrupt with half-baked ideas that Dad would praise enthusiastically. That's my boy, always thinking big. The irony being that I was the one who made those big ideas financially viable, or quietly shelved them when they weren't. My sister Joanna saw it happening. Why do you let them treat you like this? She asked once over lunch. You're the one keeping this company afloat. Family first, I'd reply with the mantra our father had drilled into us. We all do our part. But my part seemed to grow while my recognition shrank. The invisible man, that's what I'd become, carrying the weight while others took the credit. That night, after discovering Georgia and Brad together, I sat alone in my car outside our family home, looking at the missed calls flooding my phone. Georgia, Brad, even my parents. They needed me now. Needed me to fix this too, to smooth things over, to forgive and forget for the sake of family harmony. For the first time in my life, I turned my phone off completely. Looking back, I realize now they never saw me as a son or brother or husband. I was a tool, reliable, useful, necessary, but ultimately interchangeable with any other instrument that could get the job done. The betrayal I discovered in my bedroom was just the culmination of years of being used while believing I was loved, and that realization hurt far more than finding my wife in bed with my brother ever could. The evidence was burning in my pocket as I walked through my parents' front door. My fingers trembled around my phone. The damning recording of Georgia and Brad's hushed conversations, their plans, their betrayal, laid bare in their own voices. I'd listened to it 20 times on the drive over, each playback like a knife twisting deeper. My father sat at the head of the dining table, my mother beside him. Joanna was there too, fingers fidgeting with her napkin. The silence when I entered wasn't surprise. It was anticipation. They knew why I'd come. You already know, don't you? My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, hollow and distant. My father cleared his throat. Robbie, sometimes in life we need to make compromises for the greater good. I slammed my phone down, playing the recording. George's voice filled the room. Brad, we need to be careful. Robbie worked so hard for this family, for the business. My brother's laughter cut through. That's exactly why it works. He's never home to notice. I stopped the playback, looking at each family member's face. How long have you known? 2 years, my mother whispered, not meeting my eyes. Maybe 3. The floor seemed to shift beneath me. 3 years? And none of you thought I deserved to know my wife and brother were. I couldn't finish the sentence. The betrayal was lodged in my throat like broken glass. The business, Robbie. My father's voice hardened. Brad brings in the big clients with his charm. George's father is our biggest investor. We couldn't risk. Risk what? My dignity? My heart? My entire life? Don't be dramatic, he said, checking his watch. Many marriages have arrangements. You're making this personal when it's business. I looked to my mother, searching for a shred of the woman who used to bandage my knees and whisper that everything would be okay. Mom? She dabbed at invisible tears. Your father's right, dear. The family name, the company, some things are bigger than individual happiness. Joanna finally spoke, her voice small. I wanted to tell you, Robbie, but Dad said it would destroy everything we've built. You mean everything I've built? I corrected, the realization washing over me like ice water. I've been killing myself for this company while Brad seduced my wife, and you all watched it happen. Now, son, my father stood, business mode activated. Let's discuss how we move forward. George is willing to work on the marriage if you are. Brad's promised to keep his distance, professionally speaking. The casual way he described rebuilding over this betrayal, as if it were a simple construction project, made something snap inside me. The family I thought I had, the support system I believed in, was nothing but a mirage. There's nothing to discuss. I took my phone back, slipping it into my pocket. You've made your choice years ago. It wasn't me. My mother reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Robbie, please. Family forgives. This isn't family, I said, looking around the room at these strangers wearing familiar faces. This is a business arrangement where my heart was collateral damage. As I turned to leave, my father's voice hardened. Walk out that door and you're walking away from everything. Your position, your inheritance, your name in this community. I paused at the threshold, a bitter smile forming. Funny thing is, Dad, I already lost everything when I found out you all knew and said nothing. There's nothing left for you to take. Outside, the evening air felt different. Clearer somehow. The weight of being the family fixer, the reliable son, the oblivious husband suddenly lifted. In its place was a searing pain, yes, but also something unexpected. The first breath of freedom. They had built their empire on my broken back. Their perfect family portrait was painted over my blind trust. The business they so desperately protected was saturated with my sweat and sacrifice. As I drove away from the house that night, I realized the true betrayal wasn't just finding Georgia with Brad. It was discovering that love in my family had always come with conditions, with price tags, with business contracts written in invisible ink. And for the first time since I was a child, I wondered what my life might look like if I built it for myself instead of for them. I stood in our bedroom, staring at the king-sized bed where my wife had betrayed me with my own brother. The sheets had been changed, but nothing could wash away what I now knew. With trembling hands, I yanked open drawers and emptied closets, throwing George's designer clothes into garbage bags. I paused at our wedding photo on the dresser. We looked so happy, so in love. What a cruel joke. I grabbed a black marker and scrawled across her smiling face. The role of faithful wife was played poorly by Georgia Other. I placed it face down, a small act of defiance that somehow helped me breathe. You don't have to do this alone, man, Darren said from the doorway. My Muay Thai coach had become more than an instructor. He'd become my lifeline. Behind him, Tony, his girlfriend, was already boxing up kitchen items. We've got you, Robbie. Whatever you need. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. These people, who owed me nothing, showed up when my own flesh and blood had sold me out. Later that night, we sat on my empty floor eating takeout. Darren pushed a business card toward me. George Brady, best divorce attorney in the state. He'll make sure Georgia doesn't take you for more than she already has. And he's a friend of my family, Tony added. He won't leak anything to the press or your father's business associates. I ran my thumb over the embossed lettering. My father threatened that I'd lose everything if I went through with this. Darren's eyes hardened. With all due respect, you already lost what mattered. Their honesty, their loyalty. The rest is just stuff. That night, after they left, I sat alone in what was once a home filled with expensive furniture and hollow promises. The emptiness was deafening, but somehow cleaner than the lies that had filled it before. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into training with Darren. Every punch, every kick was therapy. Georgia's betrayal, left hook. Brad's smugness, roundhouse kick. My father's ultimatum, uppercut. My mother's silence, body blow. Channel it, Darren would say as I gasped for breath, sweat stinging my eyes. But don't let it consume you. The preliminary divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday. I met with George Brady that afternoon, his office a sanctuary of mahogany and discretion. They'll fight you on the business holdings, he warned, reviewing the documents. Your brother's already positioning himself as the rightful heir. Let them, I said, surprised by my own calm. I built that division from nothing. I can do it again. George studied me over his glasses. It won't be easy, Robert. Your father wields considerable influence. Nothing worth having comes easy, I replied, signing my name on the first of many dotted lines. The call started that evening. Joanna first, her voice breaking as she begged me to reconsider. Then my mother, guilt dripping from every syllable. Finally, my father, all business, outlining exactly what I stood to lose. I let them all go to voicemail. In my darkest moments, usually around 3 a.m. when sleep eluded me, I'd wonder if I was making a mistake. My entire identity had been wrapped up in being a devoted husband, a loyal son, a hardworking other. Who was I without that? Darren found me at the gym one night, long after closing, pummeling the heavy bag until my knuckles bled through the wraps. You know, he said, steadying the swinging bag, sometimes cutting ties isn't about giving up. It's about having enough self-respect to start over. I collapsed against the bag, exhaustion and grief finally catching up. They were everything to me. No, he corrected gently. You were everything to them. Their workhorse, their fixer, their patsy. Now it's time to be everything to yourself. That night, I deleted the family group chat from my phone and blocked their numbers. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. Not yet, but it was mine. And for now, that was enough. The relentless buzzing of my phone became the soundtrack to my new life. Each vibration carried another attempt to pull me back into the fold, back to the family that had betrayed me so completely. Joanna's voice message cut deeper than I expected. "You're destroying this family over one mistake, Robbie. Do you have any idea what this is doing to Mom and Dad? To the business? God, you're so selfish." Selfish. The word echoed as I deleted her message. Funny how standing up for yourself after being stabbed in the back somehow makes you the villain. My parents alternated between tactics. Dad's stern business warnings about lost opportunities and financial ruin. Mom's tearful pleas about family bonds being stronger than any marital troubles. Neither acknowledged what Georgia and Brad had done. Neither admitted they'd known and hidden it from me. I met them once, at a neutral restaurant downtown. Dad slid a folder across the table before I'd even ordered water. "A compromise," he said, his voice steady as always. "You come back to the company, we give you the Singapore expansion. Georgia agrees to counseling, and we all move forward." Mom reached for my hand, her eyes glistening. "Family is everything, Robert. Everything else can be fixed." I looked at them, really looked, and saw strangers wearing familiar faces. "Did either of you ever ask Brad why? Did you ever tell him what he did was wrong?" Their silence was my answer. "That's not family," I said, standing up. "That's a business arrangement where loyalty only flows upward." I walked out, ignoring their calls, feeling lighter with each step. That evening, I found myself at a small cafe near Darren's gym. I wasn't expecting company, but Amy slid into the seat across from me, her smile tentative but warm. "Heard you had the family summit today," she said, ordering coffee. "Still standing, I see." Amy, Georgia's half-sister, the unlikely ally I never saw coming. While Georgia had been destroying our marriage, Amy had been quietly checking on me, dropping off meals, sending texts that asked nothing but offered everything. "Barely," I admitted. "They act like I'm throwing away something precious, not protecting myself from something poisonous." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Unlike Georgia's calculating gaze, Amy's held nothing but compassion. "You know what Georgia told me when I confronted her? That you were too good, that she felt suffocated by your decency." Amy shook her head. "Some people can't stand in the light because it shows all their shadows." We talked until closing time, about everything and nothing. About her photography business, my plans to start over, books we'd both read, places we wanted to see. For the first time in months, I felt seen, not as another, not as a husband or brother or son, but as Robbie. As weeks passed, Amy became my unexpected sanctuary. Where Georgia had demanded attention, Amy offered space. Where my family pushed for conformity, she celebrated my choices. Our friendship evolved so naturally that I barely noticed when it transformed into something deeper. One night, helping me paint my new apartment, she dabbed a spot of sage green on my nose and laughed. Really laughed, and something broke open inside me. "I never thought I'd feel this again," I whispered, not specifying what this was, because I wasn't entirely sure myself. "Hope? Joy? The possibility of trust?" "Feel what?" she asked, setting down her paintbrush. "Like I'm not just surviving. Like I might actually have a future worth fighting for." She stepped closer, paint-speckled hands gentle on my face. "You do, Robbie. You always did." When she kissed me, it wasn't earth-shattering or dramatic. It was quiet, like coming home to a place I'd never been before. The next morning, I met George Brady to finalize my divorce strategy. Georgia was fighting for half my stake in other enterprises, despite our prenup. Brad had already been named acting director of my division. "They're counting on you giving in," George said, reviewing the latest filing. "Your father's pulled strings with 3 different judges already." I should have felt defeated. Instead, I felt clarity. "Let's counter," I said firmly. "I don't want the family business anymore. I want a clean break and fair compensation for what I built." George raised an eyebrow. "That's a significant change in strategy." "I'm not running away," I explained. "I'm choosing something better." That evening, Amy and I walked along the riverfront, our fingers intertwined, as I told her my decision. The sun was setting behind the city skyline, painting everything in gold and promise. "Are you sure?" she asked. That company was your life. No, I corrected gently. It was my cage. This right now feels more like life than anything I've known before. Sometimes transformation comes when you least expect it. Mine began in a sweaty gym with punching bags and the smell of determination. After walking away from my family's summit, I found myself at Darren's martial arts studio the next morning. The rage inside me needed somewhere to go before it consumed me entirely. Channel it, Darren said, holding the pads as I threw awkward punches. Don't bury it, use it. Every hit released something I'd been holding. The image of Georgia in my brother's arms, my father's dismissive gaze, my mother's tearful manipulation. With each session, my body transformed along with my resolve. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months. My knuckles calloused, my core hardened, my mind sharpened. Tony, Darren's girlfriend, became my unexpected cheerleader. Your form is getting impressive, she'd say, recording my progress. The look on their faces when they see the new Robbie will be priceless. I hadn't planned on fighting competitively. It just happened. A local MMA tournament with an opening. Darren suggested it after a particularly intense session. You're ready, he said simply. Not just physically. The night of the fight, Amy sat ringside, nervously clutching Tony's hand. I hadn't told my family, but word travels in small cities. As I waited for my name to be called, I spotted them. Brad and my father in the back row, faces tight with something between curiosity and contempt. The bell rang. My opponent was bigger, more experienced, favored to win, but he didn't have my hunger, that bone-deep need to prove something not just to others, but to myself. 3 rounds later, bloody and exhilarated, I stood victorious. The roar of the crowd washed over me, but all I saw was Amy, beaming with pride, and my brother's stunned expression as he slipped out the door. But fighting was only half my rebirth. I've been thinking, Amy said one evening, as we reviewed my settlement offer from Georgia and my family. Your expertise is wasted just walking away. What if we built something new? She spread plans across my kitchen table, market analyses, property listings, financial projections. While I'd been healing my body, Amy had been laying groundwork for a new company, Alro Homes. I've been saving to start my own business for years, she explained, eyes bright with possibility. My photography gives me a perfect eye for design elements, and you know construction and development better than anyone. Together, we could create something special, something honest. For the first time since discovering George's betrayal, I felt a surge of excitement about the future. Not just personal healing, but professional rebirth. We started small, a single renovation project that sold for double our investment, then a duplex development, then a luxury home that was featured in architectural magazines. Each success built momentum. I handled construction and development. Amy managed design and client relationships. Within a year, Alro Homes had become the emerging competitor in a market my family's company had dominated for decades. The day we secured the Westridge development, a project Total Build had been pursuing aggressively, my phone exploded with texts. My father's was the most telling. This isn't how business is done in this family, Robert. I showed Amy, who simply smiled and said, Good thing we're not his family then. That night, as we celebrated with Darren, Tony, and George at our office opening party, I looked around at these people who'd become my chosen family. None of them were obligated to stand by me, yet all had chosen to. The contrast with my blood relatives couldn't have been starker. A toast, George called out, raising his glass, to Alro Homes and its incredible founders. And to second chances, Amy added quietly, her fingers intertwining with mine under the table. I squeezed her hand, marveling at how completely my life had transformed. From broken husband to successful fighter and businessman. From betrayed brother to respected competitor. From lost son to a man who'd found his own path. The pain hadn't disappeared. Some nights I still woke from dreams of what my life was supposed to be. But those moments grew rarer as this new reality, this better reality, took deeper root. You know they'll keep coming for us, Amy said later, as we stood on the balcony of our new office, overlooking the city. Your family, Georgia. They won't just let you succeed without them. I pulled her close, feeling stronger than I ever had in my life. Let them come. We've built something real here. Something they can't touch. And for the first time, I truly believed it. They say love finds you when you're not looking for it. For me, it grew quietly in the shadows of my greatest pain, like a flower pushing through concrete. Amy was never supposed to be more than George's half-sister, a peripheral character in my collapse. Yet somehow, as the dust settled around the ruins of my former life, she became the foundation of something new, something stronger. "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore," she whispered one night as we sat reviewing Alro Home's latest projections. Her fingers brushed mine across the table, a simple touch that still sent electricity through my veins. We'd been careful at first, both scarred by the past in different ways, both afraid of making mistakes. But there's something about building a business together that accelerates intimacy. Late nights poring over blueprints, early mornings visiting construction sites, celebrating small victories and weathering setbacks side by side. I found myself studying her when she wasn't looking, the way her forehead creased when she concentrated on design plans, how she tucked her hair behind her ear when talking to clients, the gentle way she handled everyone from contractors to investors. She was everything Georgia wasn't. Genuine, supportive, honest to her core. "What are you staring at?" she caught me once, looking up from her laptop. "Just wondering how I got so lucky." She laughed that musical laugh that had become my favorite sound. "Lucky? After everything you've been through?" "Especially after everything I've been through." The night I proposed wasn't grand or theatrical. We were sitting on the floor of our first major residential project, takeout containers scattered around us, discussing cabinet finishes by flashlight because the electricity wasn't hooked up yet. "I want to build more than just houses with you," I said, pulling the ring from my pocket. It wasn't extravagant. We'd poured every cent into the business. But the diamond caught the flashlight beam and threw fragments of light across her surprised face. "Are you sure?" she whispered, eyes suddenly wet. "After Georgia taught me what love isn't," I interrupted. "You showed me what it is." The Georgia-shaped wound in my heart would always be there. Some scars don't fully heal. But Amy didn't try to erase my past. She helped me integrate it, learn from it, grow beyond it. Our engagement made waves. My phone lit up with texts from family members I hadn't spoken to in months. "Joanna, you can't be serious." My mother, "Don't make rash decisions out of spite." And most tellingly, Brad Jr., "Does she know what she's getting into with you?" I deleted them all without responding. George helped us draft a prenuptial agreement, not because either of us insisted, but because we both wanted to start with complete transparency. No secrets, no hidden agendas. "This is what healthy looks like," Tony told me at our engagement dinner, raising her glass. "I've never seen you so at peace." Darren nodded in agreement. "You're fighting differently now, too. Not from anger anymore, from strength." Amy and I bought a small house on the edge of town, as far from my childhood neighborhood as possible. We painted every room ourselves, planted a garden, adopted a rescue dog that had been abandoned, all symbols of the new life we were cultivating. Yet sometimes, driving through the city, I'd see Georgia at a cafe, or Brad at a construction supply store. The twist in my gut was less painful each time, but never completely gone. Some nights I still dreamed of that hotel room door opening, revealing their betrayal in vivid detail that jerked me awake, sweating and disoriented. Those nights, Amy would hold me without questions, her steady heartbeat against my back anchoring me to the present. "They don't get to haunt us forever," she'd murmur. "We're writing a different story now." She was right. While my family business continued with its old patterns, cutting corners, prioritizing profit over people, Alro Homes built a reputation for integrity. Clients sought us out specifically because our values shone through our work. One evening, as we reviewed plans for our biggest project yet, Amy looked up suddenly. "Do you ever regret walking away from your inheritance? Your family name?" I considered the question carefully. "I didn't walk away from my inheritance," I finally said. "I claimed a better one. Trust, self-respect, the chance to build something untainted." She smiled, eyes glistening. "I'm so proud of who you've become." "Who we've become," I corrected, pulling her into my arms. "This is our story now." And for the first time since my world imploded, I felt genuine gratitude for the betrayal that had set me free. Without it, I might never have found this woman who saw me at my broken worst and still believed I was worth building a life with. The pain would always be part of me, but it no longer defined me. What defined me now was how I'd risen from it, with help, with love, with a strength I never knew I possessed until tested by fire. Amy wasn't just my girlfriend or fiancée. She was my partner in every sense, the co-author of this second chance I never expected. And together we were writing a future neither Georgia nor Brad nor anyone else could taint. They say you can choose your friends but not your family. After rebuilding my life with Amy, I thought I'd earned some peace. But family ties are like old scars. They throb when a storm approaches. The first lawsuit arrived on a Tuesday morning. Alro Homes was being sued by other construction for intellectual property theft and client poaching. The letterhead bore my father's signature, and my brother's smug face was plastered across the attached evidence file. They can't seriously think this will stand up in court, Amy said, scanning the documents with rising indignation. These designs are completely original. George, reviewing the paperwork over video call, shook his head. It's not about winning. It's about draining your resources and scaring off potential clients. He was right. Within days, 3 major projects canceled their contracts with us. The whisper campaign had begun. That I was unstable, untrustworthy. That Alro Homes was built on stolen ideas from my father's company. Then came the personal attacks. My mother and Joanna appeared at our door unannounced, all fake smiles and hollow concern. "We're worried about you, Robbie," Mom said, her eyes darting around our modest living room, assessing what she clearly considered my downgrade. "Your father is willing to drop everything if you'd just come back to the family." "Back to the family?" I repeated, feeling Amy tense beside me. "The family where my brother slept with my wife? Where everyone knew and said nothing?" Joanna's smile tightened. "That's ancient history. George has moved on, Brad's moved on. Only you're stuck in the past." I felt that familiar burn of rage, but Amy's hand found mine, grounding me. "I think you should leave," she said quietly but firmly. "You don't belong in this conversation," Joanna snapped at her. "Actually, she belongs exactly where she is," I countered. Unlike some people, Amy has earned her place in my life through honesty and support. After they left, the real intimidation began. Our suppliers suddenly couldn't fulfill orders. Building inspectors appeared with unusual frequency, citing minor violations that delayed our projects. Our company truck was vandalized. Twice. "They're trying to break us," I told Darren during one particularly brutal training session, punching the bag with every ounce of frustration. "And the worst part is, they might succeed." "Only if you let them," he replied, steadying the bag. "Remember what I taught you about redirecting force. Use their momentum against them." That night, Amy and I formulated a plan. If they wanted war, we'd give them one, but on our terms. George helped us gather evidence of other construction's questionable business practices over the years. Safety violations, tax irregularities, bribes to inspectors. We didn't leak it yet, but we made sure my father knew we had it. Still, they escalated. One morning, I arrived at our newest construction site to find Brad Jr. waiting, flanked by 2 men I didn't recognize. "This is private property," I said, keeping my distance. My brother had aged in the years since I'd seen him up close. Worry lines etched his forehead, his eyes hollow with something that looked almost like guilt. "Dad sent me to make his final offer," Brad said, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "Dissolve Alro Homes, sign a non-compete, come back to the family business as a junior partner, and all this goes away." I laughed, actually laughed. "Junior partner? In the company I helped build? Working under the brother who destroyed my marriage?" "I didn't destroy anything," Brad snapped, color rising in his face. "Your marriage was broken long before Georgia and I." "Careful," I warned, stepping closer. "Very careful." "You always had everything handed to you," he continued, bitterness seeping through. "Dad's favorite, the golden boy with the perfect wife. Some of us had to fight for scraps of attention." "And sleeping with my wife was your solution?" I was close enough now to see the sweat beading on his forehead. "Did it work, Brad? Did betraying me fix whatever was broken inside you?" One of his companions stepped forward, hand reaching inside his jacket. I tensed, ready for whatever came next. Everything all right here? Amy's voice cut through the tension. She stood at the side entrance, flanked by our entire crew, George just behind her, with a phone visibly recording. Just a family chat, Brad replied, motioning his companions to stand down. We're done chatting, I said. Tell Dad his offer is rejected. And Brad? Georgia called last week. She wanted me to know you two are having problems. Funny how history repeats itself. The look on his face told me it was true. He stammered something about consequences before retreating to his car. That night, as Amy and I reviewed the day's events, she asked the question weighing on both our minds. Will they ever stop? Eventually, I said, running my fingers through her hair. When they realize I'm not the same man they broke. You never broke, she corrected me. You cracked, you bled, but you never broke, and she was right. The lawsuits continued. We countersued. The whispers persisted. We let our reputation for quality work speak louder. My family tried to tear down everything we built, but with each attack, our foundation only grew stronger. Some nights, the bitterness still rises like bile in my throat. I still dream of confrontations and betrayals, but those moments grow rarer with each passing month. The pain doesn't vanish. It transforms into something else. Determination. Resilience. The absolute certainty that I chose the right path, however difficult. Amy curls against me. In our bed, in our home, in this life we've built from the ashes of what was taken from me. The dog sleeps at our feet. Plans for tomorrow's client meeting rest on the nightstand. They don't define you anymore, Amy whispers into the darkness. We do. And in that simple truth lies my victory. Not over them, but over the past they represent. They are footnotes now, not chapter headings, in the story of who I've become. Life has a way of coming full circle when you least expect it. 2 years after that confrontation with Brad at the construction site, I stood barefoot on warm sand, watching Amy walk toward me in a simple white dress that caught the ocean breeze. Our wedding wasn't grand or flashy, just genuine people who'd stood by us through the storm. Darren was my best man, pride evident in his eyes. You fought your way here, he whispered, as we waited for the ceremony to begin. Not just with your fists, but with your heart. As Amy took my hands, I remembered that broken man I once was, sleeping on Darren's couch, drowning in betrayal. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Here, surrounded by chosen family, I felt something I'd thought impossible. Complete peace. I promise to honor your trust, I vowed, my voice steady, despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. To never take for granted what we've built together. George surprised us with a renovated beach house as a wedding gift, a place we could escape to when the pressures of running Alro homes became too much. Consider it payment for all the free legal advice, he joked, though we all knew it represented so much more. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm after that. Alro homes flourished, developing a reputation for integrity that my father's company could never match. The lawsuits faded away when several of their former clients chose to work with us instead, publicly citing other construction's questionable business ethics. Then came the morning Amy placed my hand on her stomach, her smile telling me everything before words could. Our daughter, Lily, arrived 10 months after our wedding, perfect and untouched by the darkness of my past. She has your eyes, Amy whispered in the hospital room. And hopefully your stubbornness, she added with a tired laugh. Holding my daughter, I made silent promises. To protect her from manipulation and deceit. To teach her that family isn't defined by blood, but by actions. To show her that even the deepest wounds can heal. Of course, the past occasionally resurfaces. Last Christmas, my mother sent a card with photos of the family gathered around Brad and George's new baby. On the back, she'd written, "The door is always open, Robbie." I showed it to Amy, who simply said, "Some doors are better left closed." I've learned that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I've forgiven them, not for their benefit, but for mine. Forgiveness freed me from carrying their betrayal like a boulder on my shoulders. But forgiveness doesn't mean inviting toxic people back into your life. Tony and Darren visit often, bringing their adopted son who's become Lily's favorite playmate. When I watch them interact with my daughter, I'm reminded that family trees can be grafted, growing stronger where once there was damage. Last month, I received an unexpected email from Joanna. She'd left the family business, tired of the manipulation and lies. "You were right to leave," she wrote. "I should have followed sooner." We met for coffee, just once, and I saw in her eyes the same haunted look I once carried. I gave her George's number but made no promises about reconciliation. Some bridges take time to rebuild, if they can be rebuilt at all. At night, when the house is quiet and Lily is sleeping peacefully down the hall, Amy often finds me on the porch, staring at the stars. She knows these are the moments when memories surface, both painful and healing. "Regrets?" she asked me once, curling into my side. "Not one," I answered truthfully. "Every broken piece led me here." My journey from betrayal to renewal taught me that life's most painful chapters often precede its most beautiful ones. That trust, once shattered, can be rebuilt more strongly with the right foundation. That family, real family, is defined not by shared DNA but by shared values and mutual respect. Today, as I watch Amy teaching Lily how to build a sandcastle on the beach behind our home, I realize the final lesson of my story. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what truly matters. The family I've chosen has healed what the family I was born into broke. And that makes every battle worth fighting, every tear worth shedding, every scar worth bearing. Life can sometimes deliver the deepest betrayals from those we trust most. But out of pain, we find strength. And in courage, renewal. True love and chosen family can heal scars. Blood cannot erase. Standing firm against deceit and choosing forgiveness on your own terms is an act of power. Remember, no betrayal defines us. How we rise from it does. Hold fast to those who truly value your heart, because that is where true family begins.